Great to see you. This is James Pask I've got with me, and my name is Glen Campbell, and I am the leader of the Conscious Leadership Collective inside the collective. And the collective is all about sovereign conscious leaders, helping people to get personal sovereignty, financial sovereignty, fusing those two things together and helping people to rise up and discover their true higher source self, to align back to spirit, which is what James is all about. We're going to talk to James about that today, aligning back to spirit. I love that. It's so crucial for us as people to be able to know how to do that. And James is going to give us insights into that today. But really, the collective is all about sovereign conscious leadership. And I know that James is aligned with that in his way. And we want to talk about his way because I've got massive experience with James. I met James a long time ago. And James has done many sessions with me. And if you want to talk a bit about that, James, those kind of modalities that you used with me, I won't go into it because I'm not sure I would do it justice, to be honest. The kind of work you were doing with me, which I found incredibly beneficial. James, to me, in the time that we worked together, was definitely an alchemist and was showing me and helping me to experience alchemy. And now I've done my own research into all that as well and have a greater understanding of that to a degree. So, James, your focus, and I want you to talk a bit more about this, but your focus is really spiritual alchemy and also energetic healing. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, James, and kind of talk to us a little bit about that. And then I've got a few questions I want to ask you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Glenn. Thanks for having me. Great to be here. And it's a really interesting match because I guess my main focus is helping people come back to metaphysical sovereignty because there's so much going on energetically in our world. There's so many different ways of developing yourself spiritually, and like with everything, you can see it in the business world. You can see it in every area of life. If you're not discerning, you can get led down the garden path. And there's a lot of that going on in, I guess, the New Age movement. And so one of the things I'm very, passionate about is helping people experience kind of grounded spiritual development that's very much earth-based, that's very much real, practical, and working with things that, as I've learnt, more in my career going along, that this is what the Indigenous cultures around the world have sort of been using and practicing for a long time. So it's got history. It's not some new thing that's just been channeled in someone's meditation 20 minutes ago. This is grounded spiritual development, or what I call eco-spirituality, I guess. Alchemy, this stuff's been around for thousands and thousands of years, and it's how humans have healed trauma, connected to the planet, to each other for a long time. So really passionate.
Can I just ask you a question about that, James? Because that's where that's where I sought you out, really, was, when I started working with you, was around this idea of this indigenous approach to spirituality. The Aboriginal people, I prefer to call them the First Nation people, and their approach to their connection with Mother Earth, their connection with spirit. That's where you and I first started. Could you talk a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess it's really interesting because you've got someone like a Bert Hellinger who created something called family constellation healing, and it's really fascinating because he was trying to help people heal after the trauma of World War II in Germany, and they were using all their psychological tools and everything they had at that point in time as far as the science of the mind, and they just found it wasn't cutting it. It wasn't doing the healing that was needed, and so he then searched out. And he thought to himself, who has been dealing with trauma for a long time on the planet? And he thought, well, okay, the Indigenous cultures. So he actually went and spent a long time going around to different countries learning about how they deal with trauma. And so when he learned that, he then applied that and got amazing results. And this is what I found too when I first learned sort of some of the New Age healing things. It was good. It made people feel better. But then things would come back. Things would return because they didn't have an understanding of how dimensions work and how everything comes back to the spirit inside the person. And so understanding that, and this is what the Indigenous cultures, whether it's the Native American Indians, the Indigenous Australians, Indigenous cultures all around the world have this understanding that everything has a spirit or a life force in it. Whether it's a tree, a bee, a human being, a cat or a dog, everything has this life force energy. And it's called, a bit like Star Wars, the Force. This force that moves in and through all things. We're all part of that same energy, and we're just different expressions of it, is what the Indigenous teach. And when you actually learn how to communicate with that energy, the spirit inside the human, the tree, the land, that's when you communicate with that part of the being, that's where you can do incredible things, whether it's communicate at that level, because you're all speaking the same language at that level, right? So you can communicate to the tree, the planet, the person. But that's also when you can make incredible changes. Because if you're just dealing with the mind, if the mind was going to figure it out, it probably already would have. But when you go into that deeper level of sort of heart-based spiritual healing, that's what that's all about, is really connecting at that level. And profound things happen when you make changes with the spirit of a being.
Some of the teachings that I've or discussions that I've been sharing with people in my work around leadership, and I just call it conscious leadership, right? Around conscious leadership is really to get out of the mind. I was talking to my wife Victoria the other day, and she was going for just a wander down to Balmoral Beach, a beach here in Sydney. And she said, I'm just going to go down there and just relax and connect. And I said, can you just do me a little favor when you go down there? And she said, yes, what's that? And I said, stop thinking. Don't think. Just connect. Connect with the beach. Take your shoes off. Connect with the sea. Connect with Mother Earth. Feel the energy of Mother Earth and allow it to flow through you and you it. And that's all I said to her. And she did. And I remember coming down to pick her up. It was like 8:30 at night. I rang her and I said, you still down there? What are you doing? And I went down to pick her up, and she was just so serene. And she was doing this thing that you're talking about, James, which is moving back into her true higher spirit self. It's not even higher, it's spirit, right? It's just spirit. She was doing that. So, incredible work. So I did want to ask you a question, kind of take a little bit of a step back here. From an energetic perspective, James, is there anything that you can share with us about why we're going through such turbulent times on the planet right now?
Oh, that's a question I get a lot, and there's lots I can share with you about that. It's such a fascinating time we're in right now, and everything's about cycles of time. And I'll never forget a teacher of mine a long time ago, Native American teacher, who said, you never swim in the same river twice. And I was like, yeah, you do. I do it quite often. Go to the same beach, same river. What are you talking about? And then, towards the end of the course, I'm like, the penny dropped. And it's like the water is the consciousness, right? So the water flows through. You might be swimming in the same spot, but the consciousness is always different. And that's what's happening for us. We're on this massive planet, which is like one big spaceship, and we're hurtling through time and space right now. We're moving so quickly right through time and space. And so where we were yesterday is different to where we are right now. And where we are right now is different to where we were 2 years ago. And so we're continually moving through this massive universe where we're kind of spiraling behind the sun as the sun goes around, and it's also around a greater spiral, and it just keeps going on and on and on. And so we're actually being exposed to different energy. We're at a different time, space, location than we've ever been for a very long time. And so we're being exposed to different energy. The sun is being exposed to a different energy, and we're very much guided by our external energies. That's what astrology is all about. The celestial energies that are around us have a massive influence on us: the moon, the sun, the earth. And so we're at a different time, space, location than we've been for a very long time. And so it's awakening an energy within the human beings. And the sun's energy is different. And the sun is shining down its energy, and that light, because it's so powerful and strong right now, it's showing us our shadow. Individually, like all our stuff's coming up, right? You talk to anyone these days and it's like, all this stuff I thought I dealt with all these years ago is sort of coming up and surfacing. And so individually, the light is forcing us to see our shadow. If we look, when the light's shining down upon you, you look to the left-hand side and you'll see your shadow there, right? And that's what the sun's doing for us individually, but it's also happening collectively. It's showing the shadow side of humanity. It's showing the shadow side of what's going on our planet. And because we're at this different time where the sun is so bright and this energy is coming through, there's lots of opportunities in that for an awakening of dormant consciousness that's in us remembering who and what we are. And we're coming out of that time. We're also coming into a new era. So we're coming out of the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. And there's all these things that are happening at the same time. So we've got cycles of time. We're a different time, space, location. We're coming out of an old era where it was all about domination, control. You know, the age of Pisces is all about sort of top-down leadership. You know, where the Pope and the governments and the presidents are all in charge and that sort of thing. And the age of Aquarius is really about the power being returned to the people. And it's about people connecting with, you know, with spirit. And instead of recognizing and worshipping all these things outside of themselves, they understand, oh, hang on, wait a minute. Actually, maybe I'm also that energy. Maybe that energy everyone's talking about, that everyone's worshipping out there, maybe that's inside me as well, and the tree and my cat and the bees and the birds. And maybe if we're all that same creation energy, maybe we should all be treating each other a lot better, working together more, because we're all source energy. And so there's all these things sort of coming together at the same time that's creating a very, very interesting time for our planet. Because at the same time, that knowledge, if you think about where we're talking about here, the sun being a different time, space, location, and what's been the information that's been coming out about the sun in the last sort of 40 years, especially the last 20 years, it's bad. Put stuff on your skin, wear sunglasses, right? Don't go out in the sun. In fact, there's one theory that they're spraying all these chemicals in the sky to block the energy of the sun coming through to try and stop the human being awakening to Homo luminous instead of Homo sapien, Homo luminous, an energetic light body being. So there's so many things going on to explain why we're going through this time. Because that old structure of the age of Pisces, that consciousness of that era, we're still dealing with all the systems and structures that have been built on our planet to deal with that energy, right? Because everything happens in the invisible world first, so the consciousness, and then we see the physical world remnants of that. So we're still dealing with the physical world remnants of how system structures, how we do business, life, everything is still operating from the old consciousness of Pisces, but it's starting to dismantle. And then,
I'd say, James, it's absolutely systematically collapsing before our very eyes, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing thing. It's the most incredible opportunity we've seen for thousands and thousands of years on this planet. There's an energy that's been in control of the human mind and life on this planet for thousands of years. And for the first time in a long time, they've shown their hand and they've been discovered, and the light is coming through those cracks and showing people what's going on. And that's just the opportunity for change we haven't seen for a long, long time. It's so exciting.
Talk to me about opportunities. Talk to me about positives. Let's explore that a bit more. There's a lot of programs, that happen where we're all talking about this dark side, and we're all talking about these dark entities and these dark forces. And, a lot of people kind of lose a bit of hope and say, man, it's too big a hill to climb. And so really with you, I know you're an incredibly optimistic guy. You really do see what's going on and where the opportunities are. Could you just highlight some of the opportunities that people can be aware of in this time, some of the positives that they can hold on to and that they can move towards and potentially even take advantage of?
Absolutely. To me, it's the most incredible time of opportunity, because if you just think about what this, if you call it the dark side, it's always interesting to look at that movie Star Wars, like they had the Sith and the Jedi Knights and this whole thing, whole dance between light and dark. And that energy's been in control for a long time. The lengths, and you know this, Glenn, the lengths they have gone to maintain control and to convince people that they don't exist, and to make everyone that knows about them and talks about them conspiracy theorists. The lengths they have gone to, the technologies they have used, the amount of money they have spent, the institutions, the religions, the things they've done to contain the human spirit, in vain, I might add, is unbelievable for thousands of years. And all we need to do is just wake up. We just have to remember who we are and be informed, and then you cannot unsee that. You cannot unremember that. It's done. So they are petrified of the human beings understanding who and what we are and really seeing the truth of our reality learning about the universe and the laws, the spiritual principles that govern how this whole thing works. They're petrified of that. They've tried to keep that knowledge from us, like for so many thousands of years. And all we need to do is learn it, understand it, apply it, wake up, remember who we are. And it takes a second. And you never know which bird is going to turn the flock. So what I mean by that is you see a flock of birds flying around, and it's only one of those birds that suddenly moves and the whole flock turns. And so we do not know which human being it's going to be that wakes up that turns the whole flock. Because there's these theories about,
well, we've got a couple in this country. We've got a couple on this planet that are kind of, stand up for me. And there's a lot turning up, isn't there? There's a lot. And so people are talking about Trump and the white hats and Q and QAnon and all that sort of stuff. That's kind of one side of it. In this country, one of my favorite people, right, is Ricardo Bossi. I love what he's saying. I just got off this morning watching him do another interview. He's starting to really spread his wings and do lots of interviews out there. And he's just, he's a warrior. He's an actual warrior, lieutenant colonel of the SAS. He's a guy who speaks. He's more speaking his mind now than ever before. He's not suffering, any pussyfooting around or any soft soaping or any, what he called princesses, and forget the princesses, step up. And so he's really kind of speaking his truth about what needs to happen, especially in this country. I mean, of course, he's talking about the world, the planet, but in this country to save Australia. And so you are getting a lot of these people like him, people like, for a change, for the first time in quite a long time, for forever, really, in my life, I'm stepping up and speaking my truth because I just felt I couldn't stop it. I couldn't do this work one-on-one with leaders anymore. And, in fact, it was my wife, Victoria, who said to me, what are you doing hiding behind closed doors, doing this amazing work, consciousness work with leaders? Why don't you get out there and start talking? The old ways don't work anymore. Forget all that. Victoria, by the way, just to bring you up to date, she's been spending years now studying this unique form of Russian numerology and tarot. And she has these insights, for me. And she says, oh, Glen, well, why don't you do this? Or, she said to me the other day, you cannot possibly do the old ways anymore in the old matrix. It doesn't work. That stuff will not work anymore. You've got to find new ways to connect with people, new ways to share your truth, new ways to talk. And so, these people are popping up, people like you, James, who are doing your work. And that's why I wanted to interview you, because I want people to know about you, mate. It's really important that they know about you and understand you and your wife, Deb, and the incredible work you're doing. So, look, you talked a bit about spirituality. You've talked about our spirit self. I know you do work around spiritual intelligence, SQ, right? Moving from IQ to EQ, emotional intelligence, IQ meaning your intellect, EQ meaning emotional intelligence. Then I started to call it, say, well, now it's CQ, conscious intelligence. And you've kind of gone up to the next step, which is spiritual intelligence. Talk to us about that, please.
Well, it's basically exactly what Victoria was saying to you. It's a new set of tools for a new time. We spoke about how the planet itself is moving through time and space, different time, space, location, exposed to different energy. And if everything is energy and everything is energy, then it makes sense that we need to have the set of tools to deal with that, right? Because we're energetic beings. Everything we see around us, and quantum physics is now really showing this, everything comes down to energy. And so understanding the laws of energy, or the laws of spiritual principles, because there's universal laws that govern how this reality works. And so once you understand that everything comes down to energy, then it makes complete sense to understand that, because most of us wake up every day and we're just living in the physical world. We go and get breakfast, we get ready for work, and we have a shower, and then we're on the computer, everything we're dealing with in the physical world. And that's the end product. Everything comes from the invisible before it comes into the physical world. And so this is where it all starts from: the thoughts, the feelings, the visions, the dreams, before it comes into
the infinite field of potentiality. The quantum field that you're talking about is energy that hasn't been manifested into material reality yet through intentions. Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And there is a set of governing rules of how that works, how it goes from thought to thing. And
talk to us about that. People need to know about that.
Yeah, well, you mentioned one of them, law of intention, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's like all of a sudden, and this is what energy healing really is. It's like they've proven through all these experiments that if you observe something, it changes it, right? What about if you observe something and you observe it, but then you have an intention that you want it to, say, return to its original blueprint of perfection, for example, for that bone or for that part of the body to be healed, and you visualize that and you intend it, and then you feel the feelings of it already being healed. And so what you're doing is you're not just observing it, you're then using the power of your heart and your mind to create a co-creational field that then influences energy, and that energy starts to move and adjust towards that sort of healed state. And so
this is the work that Bruce Lipton is talking about with epigenetics, and this is the kind of breakthrough that Joe Dispenza had when he walked himself out of the hospital, or got out of the hospital with his broken back, and then went to a mate's place on the beach and spent 6 weeks or however long he took to literally heal his spine. Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly the same thing. And this is what I've discovered after doing 20 different modalities over the last 20 years, 15,000 healing sessions on people, running hundreds of retreats, studying all different religions, indigenous cultures, philosophy. It all comes back to the same thing. They're all talking about the same thing in different ways, but there's an area that is the foundations of all of that. And it's exactly what we're talking about here, exactly what we're talking about. And so to me, understanding that world and the principles of that world, the laws that govern that world, that's what we need to spend our whole time learning about. Because if everything forms from that place, it makes complete sense. We're all out here trying to learn about that world, not realizing it all comes from here. So that's the world we need to learn about.
And so when we're learning about this stuff, James, is that the pathway back to spirit, our true spirit self? Is that what you're saying?
It is, yeah. That's the way the human being has been living on our planet for quite a while now is unnatural. It's out of harmony with universal law. And so the law of harmony means that, the pendulum will swing. It'll swing out of harmony back into harmony. And so that's what's happening now. We're seeing the pendulum swinging. There's all these universal laws at play, and we're all affected by them. It's not like they're active sometimes and not others. We're all in the middle of this universal soup of this energy, and we've been living out of harmony with the universe and its laws. And so that's going to swing back the opposite way. And so that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing it being harder and harder for us to stay the same. We're going to be pulled apart if we remain living in those old structures. We need to flow with the energy of consciousness and change, and learn how to navigate that time. And that's what spiritual intelligence is. It's like, how do I navigate this new age of Aquarius, when we've come out of Pisces, where it's about freedom and understanding yourself as a spiritual being? It's like, well, how do I do that? I haven't been taught that. I haven't been taught IQ, EQ, if you're lucky, and you kind of like talk about your feelings and stuff. But now we need that next level.
SQ.
Intelligence, SQ. We need to learn how to use our intuition. Like,
hallelujah. I've been talking about that in my leadership group for ages. I say to people, stop thinking and start feeling. You know what? I share with people. I'm going to share with this with you, James. I don't think we've talked about this. My definition of intuition, and you won't find this anywhere in a book anywhere, because it's just something that came to me. My definition of intuition is your ability to decode the language of your non-conscious mind. I call it the non-conscious, not the subconscious, of your non-conscious mind, which is connected to the field, the quantum field and the Akashic, right? And so you're getting these messages all the time, and they're coming through to you in the only language that it knows, intuition knows, which is feelings. When people talk about their gut feel, it's the ability to say, what does that actually mean? What am I getting? What's it saying to me? And so it's not about this thing, the mind analyzing it, in that very limited way. It's about this feeling that I'm getting, which is intuition. And so is that kind of what you're talking about, getting to an understanding of connecting back to the messages and the feelings that our spirit self is actually, our true higher self, our source self, is actually giving to us? And a lot of people, I tell you what, James, in my business life, this stuff was suppressed. It was suppressed because if I sat in a board meeting, or if I was being challenged by the people that I reported to, and I said, well, I know the numbers look like that, but it just doesn't feel right to me, they'd laugh at me. I'd be laughed out of the room. They'd say, it doesn't feel right to you? Man, we go with the numbers around here because we need proof. We need data. We need metadata. We need little data. And, we make decisions based on numbers, based on the left brain, the numeric brain, the sequential brain, the rationalist. It's all rationalist thinking, right? And so we need that kind of proof. Now, that to me was the 3D world of the corporate world that people are still hanging on to. That just didn't work for me anymore. And I thought, I can't do this anymore. I've got to get out of here because I'm watching things happen that don't feel right to me in my very heart, right? In my soul. And I can't keep going along with this stuff, right? It's like looking at the planet now, where you see what's going on with everything, and you see this movement, this age of Aquarius that you're talking about. And I'm so glad you talked about this. And these, these energies that we're being exposed to, which are confusing, while we're still hanging on to this old stuff, right? Because we think it's comfortable. We think it's, the real world, and it's not. So is it, let me ask you this question. Crucial to the stuff you're saying, is it about letting go? Is it about surrendering that old stuff and being open to, what's happening?
It is. The traditional meaning of a shaman is to have a foot in both worlds. And we can't ignore the physical world, right? Everything you said at business, if you're going to make a smart business decision, all of those things you spoke about make sense, don't they? The numbers and everything. But just deciding on that, you're missing half the equation. But to go and the feeling and the intuition and make decisions from that place, the left and right hemisphere, the mind and the heart together, that's where humans can be very, very powerful. Because when you're starting your journey of spiritual development, at first the mind is this 600-pound gorilla that sits on top of there, and it distracts you. You're trying to meditate, you're trying to go into the silence, and you're thinking about picking up milk and bread on the way home and all this sort of stuff. And it really throws you off, right? Because we haven't been trained how to use the mind properly. The mind is so programmable. It's so influenced from everything we see from the moment we're conceived, time in the womb as a young child. So by the time we're 14, 15, it's done. It's programmed, it's learnt, and we're continually being influenced by advertising and all this external world stuff. Even when we go to learn spirituality, say, in most human beings on the planet, that means going and being part of religion. And that, again, it's teaching you about how to worship this external force that's putting itself up as a godhead. There's nothing about this inside here, right? There's nothing about how to train this and live from here, because this is the part of you, your heart, is the part of you that has that energy that moves through and in all things, this force, this spiritual force. And it's powerful. This stuff creates trees, worlds, planets, universes. It is incredibly powerful. So if the human being lives from that place, that's where we come into limitlessness, right? It's so incredible. And the way we direct that energy is through the mind. But we need to learn how to quieten the mind first and contain it and control it. So then we can then tap into the spirit and the heart, and then use the mind to direct this limitless power that's inside the heart. And that's the power, that balance.
So move from the mind or the brain, into the heart brain. I talk about, in my leadership work, I talk about being able to be empowered to get into the state of conscious heart-led flow, conscious heart led flow, get out of mind. And so, I talk to a lot of leaders, and instead of saying, what do you think about that? I always say, what do you feel about that? It's not, I don't want you to think about it. What do you feel? What does it feel like to you? So I try and connect them back to their intuition, back to their heart, and say, what do you feel is the right thing to do here in this particular situation? So just put the thinking mind aside for a moment, that left brain, that crazy monkey beta mind that's trying to figure out everything and justify everything and get proof for everything. Just put it aside, quieten it down. The thing that you're talking about, quiet that down, get out of beta into alpha, and start to be calm, and just allow yourself to feel what you need to do in this business situation, or with your family, or with, what's going on the planet at the moment, what you feel is the right thing to do. Because I think people inherently, when they connect with that, they'll look at what's going on with the, these things, and all this stuff, and they'll go, it just doesn't feel right. And if it doesn't feel right, then don't be coerced by anybody external to you who's trying to take control of you. Take control of yourself. Take back the responsibility to be who you are. And, I talk a lot about this, and I say, everybody's looking outside for the answers, James. And we've been taught to look, to religion, to government, to big pharma, to medicine, to science, blah, 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 for answers. And really what you're talking about, and we're completely aligned in this, is you actually need to go within.
Yeah.
True?
That's right. Absolutely. And that's my definition of intuition, is tuition about going within. It's like learning how to go within, because you need to be taught it, right? Because we're not taught this at school. I don't know about you. Were you taught this anywhere at school, uni? It's only, you have to go out and find it.
I was taught the antithesis, James. I was taught that everything is external to me, right? I'm literally this poor little person that needs to learn the ways of, what I've been taught. And we kind of know that there's a small group of people that control the education system, the media, the governments, pretty much everything, right? And they'll teach you their way, which actually keeps us as a much lesser version of who we really are. And it happens from the moment we take our first breath on this planet. We start immediately being programmed into, those formative years, the imprinting years, 0 to 7 or whatever. I mean, they're taking this beautiful mind and this beautiful body, which is spirit form, and they're saying, you are now this, you little, poor little victim, which you're going to be for the rest of your lives, searching, struggling, in stress and anxiety and depression and in debt to us. Right.
So the amazing thing about what you said there is, the key word out of everything you just said is, you said it's a small group of people.
Yeah.
There is more of us than there are of them. And so, and the fear they have, they are shitting themselves at the moment because they're losing control. I call them the powers that were, not the powers that be.
Oh, what a great expression.
They are losing their grip on things because people are waking up. You cannot contain it. There's spiritual laws that every being is governed by, including them. So law of evolution, we're evolving. The one great law, like, it's happening. There's nothing you can do to contain it. You can poison us. You can spray chemicals in the sky. You can program our minds. You can do all this shit. But at the end of the day, we are going to wake up and we're going to evolve into who and what we are meant to be. And that's what's happening at the moment. And it's really, really exciting. And the things that gives me hope is again, looking at these universal laws, right? And you mentioned that small group of people, because everything has an equal opposite, right? The law of equal opposite. So you've got a centralized dark force. So the equal opposite of that is a decentralized light force, which is us. It's all the people listening to this, right? And if you think about some of the new things that are happening on the planet, decentralization, right? We're going from globalization and we're returning to the individual things here, because
the communities
exactly, yeah. To the extent that we don't govern ourselves spiritually, mentally, emotionally and physically, is to the extent that we will be then governed externally, spiritually, mentally, emotionally and physically. And so that's what's happening. We've reached that point on the law of harmony where we've gone out to this point where we're being so self-governed, and it may even get a little bit worse first. We don't know, right? Where the totalitarianism and all this stuff. Like, look what's happening in China at the moment, right? But it gets to that tipping point where, again, equal opposites, the external force coming from the outside, the external force, the pressure that's being put on the human being, the programming, do this, get this, all this sort of stuff, right? The equal opposite of that is the inside wakes up and expands. So the more they push like this, the more we go like that. So everything's happening exactly as it needs to for what needs to happen for us as a species and a planet to evolve to where we need to go. But we can be victims of that and be forced to clench our hands off the side of the river and let go into the stream of consciousness, or we can just consciously decide ourselves to learn and grow, go within, learn about intuition and spiritual intelligence, all the things we've been talking about, let go, sit back in that knowledge and flow with the river of consciousness, and it'll be a lot more fun and there'll be a lot more opportunities that come from it, right? Because, it's like if we try and go and open a DVD store right now, right, in the marketplace, good luck. You might, bit of business, but it's going to be difficult. Whereas if we're going in there and we're learning about, this world of streaming, and we're learning about, all the possibilities that are happening right now, there's a lot more going on with that, a lot more possibilities.
James, a final question for you before we close off is there a couple of practical things you can suggest for people to do now that are going to help them to, start this journey of letting go, developing trust in the unknown, trust in themselves? What's a couple of practical things they can do to, start that journey?
Absolutely. And it comes down to, first of all, getting the knowledge and then applying that knowledge. So it's learning about spiritual intelligence. It's learning about the laws of spiritual development. The first one is know yourself. The last law of spiritual development is know yourself as source. And there's a whole lot of steps in between that, from that to that. And the ancients, when I was researching this, the ancients used to call this the great work, right? And this can take years, it can take lifetimes, right? But it's the reason we exist on this planet. We've left oneness and source to individuate on this planet out of many where there's life, to have these experiences and go through the laws of evolution to come back eventually we come from all things, to experience all things, to return to all things. And as we've gone off on that journey, we've forgotten where we came from. Why are we here? What's going on? So remember who you are, work out why are you here, what's your purpose of being here on the planet, and just start doing stuff, start taking action. Because we're at a different time, space, location, traveling through the earth, and this is all about light, then we need to expose ourselves to that light. Because it's like if I was trying to operate my computer and I didn't download the last 20 upgrades, I'm not going to be able to do, most of the things I want to do. And so we need to expose our being to the upgrades. So that means getting out in the natural sunlight. It means being around a fire and a candle. It means eating whole foods that are, properly grown, that have that energy and life force in it. So we're getting that exposure to this light force energy. And it means being in a vibration of fear in a vibration of love instead of fear. Because if you look at what's going on right now on the planet, if we're in a vibration of fear, so many of our faculties of intuition, all these amazing things we're talking about, they switch off. They can't operate in that. Okay. And so we need to go and step into love, and that turns all the switches on, opens up our field so that we can live in that place, and then we'll be able to actually see what's going on and take intuitive action on that. So
when I talk about fear, this is the way I talk about it from a neurological perspective. When you go into fear, you go into your, guess what? The reptilian brain.
Yeah.
Right now, it's called the reptilian brain for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And so people join the dots on that. You go into your reptilian brain. What's that all about? Protection and safety. What are the responses of that? Fight, freeze, and flight. Creativity and imagination shut down. Connection to the quantum shut down. Ability to be able to think and feel, the intuition you were talking about, shut down. And so that's how, this is why the media is doing what it's doing.
Oh, yeah.
They keep us in fear, so they keep us, stuck in this place where we actually cannot think, we cannot feel, we cannot understand, we cannot apply these things that you're talking about, which is being able to, explore the beauty of spiritual intelligence, explore the beauty of ourselves, our light, the beauty of the light that we're connected to, that we come from. We can't do that because we're stuck in fear. And so that's why keeping the planet in fear with the next whatever it is, pandemic is going to keep them in fear, so they can't do anything. But I'm with you. When people move out of fear and they just kind of go, it doesn't serve me, let it go, move back into our natural state, which is love, right? Massively, incredibly high vibrational energy. When we move into that, especially when we start with self-love, right? Unconditional self-love of self, because I kind of look at it like this, James. If we actually find out who we really are, what's not to love? It's incredible what we are, right? And so getting back into that work.
Yeah, the real you does not even know fear. The real you does not know fear. It is part of the force that moves in and through all things. You just look at nature and you just think, wow, look at what this energy creates. You are that energy, The thing about this, everything we're seeking, everything that we're looking for, we're already those things. In fact, it's just a process of unbecoming. It's getting rid of all the programs, and that's what, when we do the healing work, basically all we're doing is we're saying, back in that moment when you were 7 years old and that person did that to you and said all those things, you thought thoughts and felt feelings that got locked in that have been creating that same pattern for you all this time. But back here, what happened? They weren't living from the heart. They'd forgotten who and what they really were. And so they allowed those stories of the mind to dictate and limit them ever since then. So we go back and we just allow them to remember who they are. We perform the spiritual alchemy and alchemize the moments of lead into moments of gold. And that's what, I see this is right now, is we've got this opportunity to perform alchemy. It's not going to happen from the mind. It needs to happen from the heart. It needs to happen from the spirit, the higher self, where we perform alchemy on each other, on the animals, on the way we live life on this planet, the land. There's so much that needs healing because of the way we've been living, the way we've been treating each other. Look at human history. It's pretty hectic, right? The wars, the way people have treated each other, and because this knowledge has been withheld from us. Look at what happened to the people that had this knowledge, right?
They exterminated them.
Yeah. So
can't have that.
There's a clue there, right? Maybe they knew something that we should sort of learn and understand. Yeah. And so that's why I'm so passionate about getting that knowledge out to people, because I see it as the most important thing that a human being can do right now. The time of, and we spoke about this in the beginning, you and I, the time of sitting on the fence is gone.
It's over.
You are having an effect on this world. What you think and what you feel has an effect on the quantum field. So start thinking and feeling better thoughts and feelings, and help us all get out of the mess we're in and make some positive changes here. For yourself, heal the world, right? For each other, for the animals, the planet herself, they're all vibrational fields that need assistance, right? We're all in a bit of a thing here.
And we've all got an incredible role to play to do that. James, 100%. We're going to finish up now. I want to know where people can connect with you, because I'm sure people are going to want to connect with you. Where can they find you, mate?
They can find us at our website, which is resonate.com.au.
Spell that.
REZINATE.com.au.
I'm going to put the link in the description below, by the way, so people can make it very easy to find you, because it's people like you, James. I have massive respect for you. I always have. Your work has evolved incredibly, both you and your wife. I know you're a team, Deb.
Yep.
And so if anybody's interested in connecting up with James, he has online programs as well. I'm going to put the link below, and please seek him out, because he's one of the guys that is going to help everybody to be one of the guys, male and female. This is how we all get back into our power. We develop this powerful sea of consciousness, of spirituality, and we take back what has been rightfully ours. Right, James?
Beautifully said, mate. Beautifully said. And much love and respect to you as well, mate. And thank you for the opportunity to have a chat. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, James. Take care.
You too, mate. Take care.